Well, hi, hello, and how are you doing out there in internet land? My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative, and welcome to Chattin on the Porch, a fun little thing we do every so often here on this wonderful little medium that we call social media, where we bring on a guest and we talk about news and items of the day. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your Front Porch Conservative. I am sometimes known as the wise guy in the wide brim. On occasion, I'm called the common man with common sense. But as always, in this moment, at this hour, I am your host. We are on Rumble, we are on Twitter, and we are on that quaint little alternative social media platform known as YouTube. So if you do not mind, do some favors as always. If you're not subscribed to my channel, go ahead and do so. While you're at it, share the link around for this live stream with all your friends. Tell them to come on in, check us out, and leave a comment in chat. Hit the thumbs up button. Do all those things you do. Go crazy, St. Louis, and everywhere else in the world for that matter. All right, good to see you all here this evening on this. How many days are we to Christmas? Is it 6 days or 7, technically speaking? I don't know. Look, I'm not good with math, and I'm definitely not good with technology, so we'll just leave it up to you guys. You tell me how many days are left till Christmas. There are X number of days left till Christmas, okay? And we are here for what? Okay, so it is 6 days. We are 6 days away from Christmas. Have I got a lot of shopping to do? Oh boy. Anyway, hello, Lana. Good to see you here tonight, my dear. Let's see who else is in the house so far. Well, we know that the boys over on Rumble are here. That is faux show. And they're checking everything out. They have provided many laughs as always. Yes, sir, I am doing a show this Saturday. We will be doing a front porch brunch for the weekend. And more than likely, that is going to be the last show of 2025. Last live stream of the year. I thought about it today, and because next week is going to be pure chaos for everybody. They're going to be traveling, last minute gift buying, food preparation, everything else. And it's like, you know what? I'm not going to bless everybody's heart. As much as I know they love hanging out on this live stream. Well, no, not the last show, the last show of 2025. Good grief. No, it's not the last show. Ugh. That makes sound very permanent and final, sir. No, we're just simply trying to, for everybody's sake, host included, of course. We think it makes sense for everybody. Well, hello to our friends from Cincinnati. The pit crew is in the house this evening. Good to have y'all here. This Saturday is going to be front porch brunch, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. And more than likely, barring some major news event that would cause me to want to come back before the beginning of the new year, it will be the last live stream of the season of 2025. And we would be back on the air, or I shouldn't say back on the air, back over the internet, let's put that way, which would be Saturday, January 3rd. So if anything comes up between then and now, we'll be on. Otherwise, it's going to be this Saturday and then again, January the 3rd. So anyway, all right, let's get down to business as we have a guest waiting in the background. And we will do a few memes. And then we also have a birthday to celebrate. And I think you're going to appreciate this birthday for everything it's contributed to the world. All right. Now, we've all been kids at one time or another. You could also make an argument we're all still kids these days. But, the experience of sitting on Santa's lap and asking him, for the things that you want for Christmas, or him asking you what you want for Christmas, is not quite the same anymore. I mean, for example, Santa looks at a little boy these days, says, "What do you want for Christmas?" He says, "I want a unicorn." Santa's like, "Oh, be realistic." "Okay, then give me a government that doesn't violate my rights." Santa's like, "Okay, kid, what color unicorn do you want?" Like I say, it's not quite the same as it used to be. I don't quite know. I don't know. What can I tell you? Oh boy. Anyway. And also, when you're telling Santa or anyone else for that matter, what it is that you want for Christmas, you have to be very specific. I mean, otherwise, you might get a gift that you never intended to receive. I mean, for example, whoop, shit, no, see, that's what I get. That's what I get. I told you I wasn't any good at technology. Anyway, there we are. Yeah, if you don't be careful and tell Santa exactly what it is you're looking for, you might wind up, getting something you never ever intended. I mean, you know, 30-year-old escort, well, okay, you got exactly what you're asking for. So, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? Just saying. And even singing Christmas carols these days isn't quite the same. I mean, there's some carols that, their meaning never changes over time, and some of them you find are very adapted to the times in which you live. For example, check this out.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way.
To any foreign country, as long as it's not here.
Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
I think that's more than one horse, but okay.
Dashing through the snow.
Now there you go. There you go, folks. See, even Christmas carols take on a whole different meaning this time of year. Yikes. Now, I said we have a birthday to celebrate, and I don't know if you guys know it or not, but for those of you out there who are music fans, today is the birthday of the legendary Keith Richards, lead guitarist for the legendary rock group, the Rolling Stones. He is a musician. He's an actor. He's appeared in a couple of Pirates of the Caribbean movies, if you think back to it. And today is his birthday. And I just thought, for the sake of the show, that you might want to go through a brief pictorial. Well, now wait a minute. Now I don't know that I'd necessarily describe him as ancient. That seems a bit harsh. But I thought we might go through a brief pictorial history of the life of Keith Richards. I mean, for example, Keith has been on stage for longer than anybody can remember. I mean, matter of fact, the people back in Bedrock at one time used to tune in to the local TV stations to enjoy seeing Keith Richards and his fellow bandmates on the tele, as it were. So, yeah, I mean, he's been around forever. But like I said, I don't know that I'd call him ancient, for heaven's sake. And I mean, give Keith Richards credit. I mean, like a lot of struggling English musicians, he was doing some work on the side. And I mean, we even got pictures of some of that. I mean, you've seen pictures of him on stage, but did you know that he was also a stonemason? I mean, for example, here's a picture of he and the legendary Willie Nelson. They were doing some quarry work at one time or another. That thing looks heavy, man. I don't know. It's just kind of man, you got to be tough to be doing that kind of stuff. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, Keith's been around for a good long time. And, hey, when you reach the point in life that he is, you ought to be able to celebrate it. Matter of fact, for those of you who are fans of the legendary Stones frontman, lead guitarist, a little something for you to enjoy. 82 years old, still rocking it as best he knows how. Well, good evening, Professor Tie-Dye, or JL Not Here. Hey, Brian, did you see the Judge Hannah Dugan trial? No, I did not see that. Thank you, though. Thank you. I did not know that was going on. Thank you very much. All right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank, as always, WWG1. I want to thank our good friend TBA. We're going to save some of the memes that they provided for this Saturday, and we'll get to the introductions of our guest. Now, we have a lot of people who've come on the electronic front porch at one time or another, and all of them are near and dear to our heart, but this next guest is a frequent visitor to our fine electronic forum. And she is a professor of economics. She is a commentator. She is a intellectual provocateur. And you can find a lot of what she does at a website, and it is link-sync.com, where you can find radio interviews, articles, lectures, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please help me welcome back to the Electronic Front Porch a dear friend of ours, Professor of Economics, Dr. Robin McCutcheon. Doc McCutcheon, welcome back to the Electronic Front Porch. How you doing?
I'm doing really great. Thank you so much for having me back on your show, Brian.
A pleasure to have you here. Now, please tell me that we're not getting any kind of an echo.
I don't hear an echo.
Oh, yeah, baby. Woo! Yeah. It's the little things in life that make your host happy.
It really is.
All right. To quote Matthew McConaughey. How you been doing?
I'm good. Have been doing a lot of research in the area of child welfare and foster care in the Appalachian region and West Virginia in particular. Just wrapped up a really busy semester, and I think I'd like to take the next week and let my brains leak out a little bit, and then get geared up for next semester.
Well, that's probably not a bad idea. I, on the other hand, have decided to let my brains leak out 365 days out of the year, as many people who watch this live stream will attest to, because they're like, whatever that guy's got between the ears, it's slowly fading away. Look at the way he's operating this live stream, I tell you. So,
well, I sent you my great grandmother's recipe for brandy balls. So,
yes.
I will tell you the secret to that recipe is that you really need to make those in June or July and put them in a I was going to say an airtight container, but she never had that. Put them in a container and tuck them away for about 6 months, and then you only need a few of them.
Oh, I'll bet. Oh yeah,
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. You want a Merry Christmas? Get you a couple of those babies and watch what happens.
That's right. No driving afterwards.
No, it's like, yeah. Here, I'm going to give you the keys, but you're eating chocolate. Oh no,
No,
not even close. Not even close.
They're potent.
Anyway, great to have you back here tonight. We had talked about doing this because we're sort of at that unique point of the year where we're not quite on the edge of the new year, but we're close enough to be able to say, okay, let's start looking over the edge and see what's possibly coming. Let's also look back behind us and see where we have been. And I sent a list of topics, and I know what's going to happen. We're going to go down probably 4 or 5 different rabbit holes per question, which is perfectly fine by me. And by the way, folks, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in chat on Rumble, on Twitter, on YouTube. And, if we see a question, we'll pop it up there. And if you guys got something you want to ask the doctor, well, here's your opportunity. So let's start with the look ahead, if I may. We are about to enter 2026. And I mean, you watch economic data better, faster, and harder than I do. It seems like there are 2 different signals that are being sent. One of them is, okay, this piece of data points to, we're laying people off in various sectors. You also have reports of, billions and trillions of dollars being brought in by way of investment from overseas. You have companies that are announcing layoffs here, companies announcing layoffs there, and then you get reports like this one today, where the government issued its monthly report on inflation, and it comes in lower than expected. And we had talked about this the last time we were here, that people are still feeling the pinch, be it with food or what particular thing you're talking about. So I guess my first question to you is, when you look ahead to 2026, what do you see coming? There's one of 2 paths. Are we headed to a recession where we got large layoffs, downturn in certain sectors, general economic there, or with everything that's, starting in the background, starting to come to the fore, are we headed to a big upturn unexpected? I mean, where do you see the economy, broadly speaking, going?
I think I have to start with gas prices on that one. I have a little tidbit here somewhere in my stack of stuff that gas prices are down overall. And a lot of that is due to an increase in supply. So when supply increases, prices go down, all things held the same. But I think we talked about last time, or maybe the time before when I visited with you, that when gas prices go down, it gives us a ripple effect of kind of an income boost. Gas prices go down, diesel prices go down, so shipping becomes cheaper. So all of those grocery products or whatnot that go to Walmart and Kroger's, it's now cheaper to get them to the store. And if it's cheaper to get them to the store, that means prices will drop at the store. Well, as prices go down, overall price levels go down for gasoline and food, just those two.
Right.
And your income hasn't changed, that's like getting a raise, right? Because you're not spending extra money on gas, you're not spending extra money on food. And I think sometime in the spring when I was with you, we talked about egg prices. Now, back in 2024, I remember looking at an 18 pack of eggs, an 18 count of eggs, and it was $8.25. Now, 10 years ago, that 18 count of eggs cost $1.19.
Yeah.
So that's an 800% increase in the price of eggs. But I just bought eggs, that same 18 count, for $1.99. Okay, fine. It's not $1.19, but it's not $8.50.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So, and I think when I talked with you about the price of eggs way, way back in the spring, I said, look, during 2023 and 24, the Biden administration had 100 million hens culled from our overall flocks. Our overall flocks were about 1 billion hens. We culled out 10% of them, which means there are going to be fewer egg-laying hens. And it takes about 6 or 7 months from the time the little guy hatches, or little gal hatches out of the egg. It takes 6 or 7 months for that hen to start laying eggs. Gee, where are we at? 6 or 7 months down the line.
Yeah.
Right? And I think I talked with you way back in the spring about hogs. It takes about a year, maybe 18 months, but mostly a year to raise a hog from a piglet to the time it goes to slaughter. And where are we at now? We're about a year. And it takes about 2 years to raise a cow from the time it's born until it goes to slaughter. That one's going to take probably another 6 or 8 months. So we're getting to the point in time where our herds and flocks are being replenished. And as that supply of meat and fowl increases, the prices are going to go down. So that, in conjunction with lower price on gasoline, is going to give a huge boost to the economy. Just those two things, just the price of gasoline coming down, pushing down the price of food, pushing down the price of everything else that you're buying at Walmart and Kroger or wherever. That's going to have a huge ripple effect in the economy. Does that make sense?
It does.
So just those two things, I'm looking ahead into the future, and I'm saying, well, Trump is increasing the amount of oil that's being refined, which means that the price of gas is going to go even lower. Now, imagine with me, right in our area, gasoline is about, I think I saw it as $2.85 on Fifth Avenue at Kroger's. But imagine that price of gasoline drops another $1. That's huge.
That's enormous.
That's huge, right?
Yeah.
And so instead of, I mean, when President Trump left office, January 20th, 2021, I made a special trip to look at the price of gasoline at Kroger on Fifth Avenue. It was $1.87. We only need another $1 off, and we're right back to where we started. That's all we need.
Well,
so those are two things. $2.
$1.99, yeah, Colorado.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I think the only state that hasn't experienced a decrease in gas prices is California, but they're full on communists anyway. So, but what that means is that the ripple effects across the economy are going to start being felt by everyone. Their money will go farther, buying more stuff, even without an actual increase in their wage. And to me, in my mind, that's a good thing. Now, I want to also remind you that when President Trump came in with his first term in 2017, he did a couple of things. The first thing that he did was he implemented a reduction in regulations. He said, for every one regulation we put in, we're going to take out 11. Now, if you reduce regulations it's almost like a tax on a business. It increases their overall cost of production, which reduces the amount of profit level that they have. Well, when you take out regulations, that increases the profit level that firms are making, thereby allowing them to go out and hire more people if they wish.
Okay.
So, but what ended up happening was he didn't reduce for every one regulation he put in. He didn't reduce it by 11. He reduced it by like something around 21. This time he wants to reduce by 48.
Oh, wow.
For every one regulation that he puts in, he's going to reduce all the other regulations by 48. So you're talking about a huge kick in the pants for the economy from the business side, from the supply side of the economy.
Mm-hmm.
So that reduction in regulations, I don't want to say it's instantaneous, but it's really fast.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's the first thing. So cast your mind back to 2017. President Trump comes in, he starts reducing all these regulations, and we around the first quarter of 2018, maybe into the second quarter of 2018, there was a huge economic upswing.
Yep.
There was a huge boom. In fact, one of my colleagues who's now passed on, he was not a President Trump fan. I'm absolutely certain he did not vote for President Trump. He was poo-pooing and naysaying President Trump left, right, and center. And he came back to me and he said, those economic policies President Trump has, pretty smart. Guys, he's not as much of a doofus and an idiot that I thought he was. I said, wow, I'm glad to see that you've changed your mind. He said, but don't talk with my wife about it. She still thinks he's an idiot. I said, oh, okay. It's all right. Doesn't matter. But my point is that President Trump, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary to term number 2, right?
Right.
In 6 months, if President Trump only did what he did the last time, where are we going to be at? We're going to be in a far better place than we were a year ago.
Okay.
And so because he's implementing this reduced regulations by 48 every time we put one in, that's going to have an even faster, harder press on the gas pedal, as so far as I'm concerned.
No, I agree, because people do not understand the cost of abiding by regulation.
It's horrendous.
For every regulation that a business has to abide by, that creates a cost, and either in manpower, productivity, or both, because you've got to comply with the reg, whatever it may be. And if you put a lot of regs on, that means you got to do a lot of compliance. That's a lot of cost. Yeah. And people have no idea the insidiously derogatory effect that
Right.
regulation, I mean, don't get me wrong, a certain amount of regulation you have to have. I get that. But there comes
Mhm.
a fine line between, having regulation that makes sense and just regulation for the sake of having regulation,
Right.
you know?
Regulations penalize a business. Okay, so then the knock-on effect of reducing regulations is you make the market freer so that somebody who's thinking about starting a business goes, ooh, maybe this is a good time to start a business. And so when we're talking about the aggregate supply out in the macroeconomy, the aggregate supply, in my opinion, is mostly made up of, no, it's, how do I want to say this? Making that aggregate supply grow, the very first thing that you want to do is you want to get more people to start their business. And so as regulations come down, it becomes easier for people to start a business. Now, we have right now about 165 million businesses in the country. 85% of those are small business. They're sole proprietor or they're partnerships, and they have roughly less than 50 employees.
Mhm.
Okay. What's going to happen when these regulations start being eliminated, tossed out left and right, and you get another 10 or 20, 30 million people decide to start their own business? Now, maybe most of them won't hire employees. Maybe it'll just be them and the cat. But as that aggregate supply gets pushed out into the right, that forces the overall level of prices to come down, which
Mhm.
is sometimes known as disinflation or deflation. And as those prices come down, the quantity demanded of all goods and services increases. You increase the quantity demand, people start, they go buy more stuff. They go
Yep.
buy more stuff, businesses become more profitable. All of a sudden, they have to hire more people. They hire more people, income levels go up, people buy more stuff, business profit goes up, they hire more people. Income goes up. You see, it's the
Yep.
economy is a large system. And when you start fundamentally altering the rigging under the system so that that system is freed up so that it can work better,
Yep.
it doesn't take long for it to work better.
Oh, agreed. Totally agree.
So I'm just the several things: regulations, gas prices, food prices, overall prices. Everything is going to work in our direction. It'll be like the wind in our sails.
Cool. Lord knows we could use some wind at our back
We could use
as
some wind
opposed to
at our back.
trying to blow us down in front of us. Now, are you ready for your first question of the night from the audience? Because I saw one earlier, and I thought, this, as always, we are want to say hello to Christian Watson, aka the Professor, one of our favorite people here on the Electronic Front Porch. Question for the doctor, or two. One, does she believe tariffs are economically sound, given the thoughts of people like Sol and Friedman who oppose them? And two, what factors are causing the Gen Z job crisis right now? Ooh, okay. That's a
Okay.
couple of
Well,
interesting questions.
let's tackle tariffs first.
All right.
Let's tackle tariffs first because we've already talked about this a couple times on your show.
Okay.
300 years ago, the whole idea of a tariff war between, say, Britain and France was looked down upon because those two economies were roughly the same size. I say roughly.
Okay.
The thought behind tariff wars was if Britain raised the tariffs on its, I don't know, pick something that they were sending over to France, or let's see, let me switch that up. Britain was going to send something to France. France was going to raise the tariffs on that. So in retaliation, Britain would raise the tariffs on whatever France was selling to them. And both of those countries would lose. Those are economies that are roughly the same size. the thing that President Trump knows, I don't know, I'm pretty sure Thomas Sowell knows this, and Milton Friedman is looking down upon us from heaven, so it doesn't matter what he thinks now anyway. What President Trump knows is that the American economy is wider and deeper than any other economy or combination of economies in the entire world. Everyone wants to send us their shit. I mean, stuff. So, and it's not like they don't want to send it to other countries, but we are the ones that buy everything.
Yep.
And so President Trump can use these tariffs as incentive, if you will, to get those other countries to lower their tariffs on the stuff we're sending them.
Okay.
You see, the tariffs that President Trump imposed on all other countries is like a cover charge. It's the price that those countries are going to pay to get their goods into our country. And President Trump was simply saying, look, we're sending you stuff, but you're charging us 135%. Now, if you don't want to be paying 135% on the stuff you're sending us, then lower your tariffs. It's called reciprocal.
Mm-hmm.
And President, I knew it was going to work. I didn't even have to watch it work. I knew it was going to work before it even happened, because these countries depend upon sending their stuff to us in order to fund their country. That's why they put high tariffs on the stuff we're sending to them. They don't want our shit in their country. They're protecting their own industry. They don't want our stuff there. They don't want their people buying our stuff. They want their people buying their stuff. Does that make sense? So
it does.
The tariffs were going to work because all of these countries with much, much smaller economies than ours want to send their stuff to us, and they want us to buy it. And President Trump was using the tariffs as, I don't know, a club, a baseball bat. Come on. You want to send your stuff to our country, America? That's great. We want your stuff coming in, but we want to also send our stuff to your country, and we don't want to be taxed into oblivion, because then nobody will buy our stuff because it's priced higher than your local goods that are made there. We want a fair playing field. You want to send your stuff here? Lower your tariffs on the stuff we're sending. And that's why he did it. That's exactly. It wasn't necessarily to punish countries. It was to get them to realize that they need us more than we need them.
Mm-hmm.
And then what else did he do with the tariffs? He said to all these countries who were manufacturing things in their countries and sending it here, he said, look, if you build it here, there's no tariff. There's no tariff if you build it here. And what did that do? Well, a lot of these companies are looking around going, well, we'll just build it there. So you start building all kinds of factories and assembly lines and businesses, even if they're run by, I don't know, somebody from South Korea. If the business is here, they're hiring Americans. Again, we go back into that. The more people are hired, the higher incomes go, the more stuff they can buy, yada, yada. Right?
Okay.
So it was a two-pronged approach. One was, if you want to send your stuff to our country, South Korea, lower your tariffs for the stuff we're going to say. Hey, you're going to keep your tariffs high? I'm going to tariff the shit out of you. See how much stuff you sell. You don't want to pay the tariff at all? Build your stuff here. Hire Americans, not these H-1B visas, which
exactly.
I'm pretty sure he's going to be tackling that. So this two-pronged approach, then, how many trillions of dollars has he said that he's brought in? $17 trillion in investment?
Something along those lines, yeah.
That's 1/2 of our GDP, Brian. $17 trillion is just about 1/2 of our GDP.
Yeah, if that 17 trillion starts working its way through the economy, that's going to be quite
Right?
something else to see.
And so more wind in our sails. That's how I see
Absolutely.
it. Now, what was the second part of
Well, before we
Christians?
do that, we've got a comment related to tariffs. WWG1 says before 1913, the only way the federal government was funded was through tariffs. So yes, it can be done.
Can be done and was done for what, 140 years?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we have lots
Absolutely.
of evidence that it works.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
the second part of that question went something like this. What factors are causing the Gen
Mhm.
Z job crisis right now? I would and let me tack on something else to that. Not that I'm trying to take anything away from Christian. I would like your thoughts about AI because there is and I can understand why. There is a palpable fear among a significant portion of the population about what AI is going to do to the job market. So I'll let you take on the second half of Christians first, but I'd like to get your thoughts about that. But yeah,
Yeah.
with regard to Gen Z, what is
First,
causing the job crisis for them right now?
first I'm going to need to know what Christian's definition of Gen Z is. What age bracket are we looking at? Because I'm not Gen Z. I'm 3 generations away from there.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll let him answer. But
Okay.
in the meanwhile, Gen Z is generally described as those born between 97 and 2012. So if you figure 97, you're talking
30.
07, 17. You're
28.
talking 30 year olds, but
Yeah,
20s and
30-year
30-year
olds.
olds.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm really glad he asked this.
Okay.
Um, I have to take you back to the mid 1970s when much of the legislation that came out of the federal government um, began pushing companies to, okay, great,
Okay.
upper age 30,
Okay.
began pushing companies to take their manufacturing overseas. Do you remember that? You
I
might
remember.
have, okay. And then by the mid 80s, a lot of the big manufacturing companies, especially GM, Ford, and Chrysler, it's not Chrysler anymore, but the car companies started looking at taking their operations outside of the United States because labor in other countries was cheaper than what they were paying union workers. And so we see between the middle of the 1970s all the way up to, oh gosh, even as recent as 2015, we see an incredible decline in the manufacturing base in the United States. Now, the other thing that happened is so shortly after that, so like the mid 1980s or even maybe the early 1980s, high schools across the country started eliminating or reducing their vocational, technical, trade skills courses. Most
Mhm.
most most high schools had eliminated VOTEC by the time we get to the early 90s. So these Gen Z kids, they never had VOTEC.
Mhm.
There was a big push at the middle of the 1990s, like 1995 to the almost 2000. There was a big push to have students forget about VOTEC. Trade skills were looked down upon. Blue collar was not the thing to do. There was a big push to get students into college. Get that college education and you can make something of yourself.
Mhm. Mhm.
The federal student loan program exploded with applications. So here we have a generation that was born after a great chunk of manufacturing had left the United States. They're not getting the vocational education training. They have no trade skills unless they were able to find a journeyman or master who would take them under wing and teach them what they knew. So they're not getting the VOTEC. So they come out of high school. Not every high school graduate is college bound.
True.
I know this is going to shock some people at Marshall, but not every student coming out of high school can make it through college for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. So you have an entire generation who didn't get VOTEC. The number of manufacturing jobs out there has dwindled precipitously, and the old people who have those jobs aren't turning loose of them.
No.
And so because they don't have the vocational training coming out of high schools, they're not taken on as apprentices, right? So they don't get that entry-level training. And when they don't get that entry-level training, they also then don't have that work experience to move up.
Yep.
Right? So now we have what Leon Kondratyev, a Russian labor economist, way back in 1915 called, he actually called it a Kondratyev wave. It's a 20 or 40 year wave where something happens and then it takes 20 or 40 years to change it.
Yeah.
Now, he used it with demographics, but we can use it with the Gen Z question. So we have an entire generation that never had VOTEC. They haven't gotten the entry-level jobs, which means they're not moving up into corporations, which means they're not making money as 18, 19, 20, 25-year-olds, which means they're not getting married, they're not having kids. And then you get the knock-on effects of they're not forming households, they're not having children, or worse, they're moving out of the state, which means that the entire school system is crumbling because there's not enough babies being born 10 years ago to keep the head counts high so the schools can be funded.
Yep.
This problem, it's not going to be solved overnight. President Trump has, I think he signed, I don't remember the name of the act, but he signed it to where educational trust, the 529s, can be used to pay for trade schools.
Now that's smart.
Now, I took this little nugget of information, and when Marshall University President Brad Smith had his welcome back picnic for faculty just before school started, I took this little nugget and went to him and I said, did you know this? That the educational trust, the 529s, it's almost like $1 trillion stuffed away in these educational trusts. I said, they're now opening these for trade schools. And I said, do you ever thought about starting trade schools at Marshall? And he said, I'm glad you asked that. He said, because right at this moment, this way back in August, we're working with 38 county high schools to reinstitute vocational training at the high school level starting in 9th grade. And so when the students come to their summer into junior and summer into senior year, they will have apprenticeships, and they're working in conjunction with Marshall University. So when these students graduate from high school, they will come out with an associate's degree and they will have a job better than entry level into that trade. Now, what's this going to do? Now you're going to have young people, 18, 19, 20 years old. Maybe all they do is get an associate's degree, but they've got that ticket, right? They've got that card. They're on their way to journeyman or master. They've got the wherewithal to find spouses, start families, buy homes. And since all of it is focused on here in West Virginia, what's that going to do for West Virginia?
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
Now, I just heard on the news like 2 weeks ago, I just heard on the news that all 55 counties in West Virginia are working with Marshall University to reinstitute the vocational trade skills classes. Now, this doesn't really help Gen Z today, except that all these trade school classes I've heard, are being open to anyone who would like to join them.
Yeah.
Gen Z?
And that's smart. That is smart.
Right.
Yeah.
So what Gen Z is experiencing right now didn't start in 1997. It started 25 years before they were born. Those knock-on effects can be crippling.
Yeah.
And that's why President Trump was pushing. See, here's another twist. That's why he was pushing all the tariff wars. Why? Because he didn't care really to charge countries more money to bring their stuff in. He wanted them building their factories here. Because when you build a manufacturing factory, you don't just have people working on the line. You have building trades, you have electricians, you have plumbers. Yeah, you got to have a janitor. Somebody's got to push a broom. But you get that experience inside of the corporate business structure so that you can start moving up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and personally, I think President Trump is a business genius, and I see good things coming. Now, let me address your question of AI. How many people in your audience have seen The Terminator?
I'd say a significant number. If you've seen Terminator, put an F in chat.
Yeah,
do that.
I bet you. Now, wasn't Terminator sort of the embodiment of AI gone wrong?
Oh, yeah.
Skynet's going to kill us all off, right? If we don't send somebody back into the past to kill off the guy who funked up Skynet, we're all dead. Well, what happened in Terminator 4 Genesis? Didn't all of that programming of AI is bad, we're all going to die, wasn't that turned on its head?
Yeah.
AI is just a tool. It's like a hammer. You can use a hammer to build a house, or you can use a hammer to hurt people. What if all of those silly movies that we've been watching for the last 80 years where AI or computers or robots were involved, what if that was to scare the living crap out of us so that we wouldn't chase down AI?
Yeah.
What if AI really is a good thing because it's just a tool? Now, yeah, it depends on the hand wielding the tool, right? If the hand wielding the tool is an evil son of a bitch, we're all in deep shit.
Yeah.
Whose hand is wielding the tool right now?
Well, Trump's president.
Right. I'm going to have to add, I think, this is my personal opinion. I think the hand that wields the tool right now is not an evil son of a bitch. I think the hand that wields the AI tool right now really does want to help humans and humanity in general. Right. I think AI is some of the answer that we've been looking for to help us in medicine, in teaching, in just living better.
Yeah.
With less effort, thriving rather than just barely scraping by. Right? So
very true.
I mean, I know President Trump isn't going to be president forever, but I just have this sneaky suspicion that the people who developed AI for wicked purposes, that those people aren't going to get to use it the way they wanted to.
Let's hope you're right. Now I want to go to some comments and chat with related thing. E. Morlock says, my son-in-law quit his white collar $40,000 a year job for air mechanic school, $1,600, takes 18 months, 70,000 openings nationwide, and he'll start with an $80,000 job. Good for him.
Right.
Good for him.
Awesome.
Here's
Yep.
another one. Son works for a New York City electric company. They're begging for people $23 an hour just to read meters. Oh my goodness.
And they're not getting out of their truck to read the meters. They've got some kind of an RFID chip that all you have to do is drive down the road and it picks up the meter readings.
Yep. And Forest Mommy says, my dad washed windows the last 20 years of his working life and made money. My brother was able to graduate high school with an HVAC cert. Yeah, I mean, the trade schools are making a big comeback. I mean,
oh yeah.
And you've probably seen this, and I'm just going to speak locally to our area. There is a very large project which is now complete, a brand new vocational school in the area of one of our largest shopping malls. And I think you know where I'm talking about. I mean, I'll drop the name, but most people outside of our area aren't going to recognize it. The
Okay.
Woody Williams Vocational School near the Huntington Mall. I mean, this thing is massive. I haven't even been in the inside of it yet, but I mean, for everything that it's going to allow them to do with the area they've got, it's just going to be tremendous.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean,
Well,
you know, I mean, at least your university's president has the good sense to realize, yeah, not every kid who graduates high school really ought to be in college.
Well, and Brad and I had we had a talk way back in 2012. I invited him to my capstone class at Marshall, my economic class, capstone class. And I asked him after he had given the students an assignment, we were sort of standing off to the side, watching everybody sort of process the information and work their way through it. And I looked at him and I said, you ever thought about being a university president? I got my wish.
Yeah.
Because I could see that we desperately needed somebody who knew how the business world worked. And my desire when I arrived at Marshall was to do everything I could to help my students stay here. I don't want them moving away. I want them here with good jobs, able to marry those people that they want to marry, able to buy homes and raise families, because the only way that a state can sustain its growth is through their people.
Yeah.
And Brad and I shared that desire. And ever since he's come to Marshall, I hope he stays. I know he won't, but ever since he's come to Marshall, that has been our combined desire. And it's something that I continue to promote to my students. Look for ways to stay here because we need you. Now, something else, you probably know this. Did you hear about the new natural gas plant that First Energy is putting in?
No, I did not hear about this.
You didn't hear about that?
No.
So First Energy officials, this is from November 17th, I think, just a month ago. First Energy officials recently provided additional details about their plan to build a 1,200 megawatt natural gas combined cycle power plant in West Virginia. I think it's going to be over in Kanawha County.
Okay.
But the plant is expected to be operational by 2031. An investment of $5.2 billion is being done between now and 2029. It's going to support 3,200 construction jobs, 2,200 operational jobs, and generate more than $150 million annually in state and local tax revenue.
Oh, that's great.
See, those operational jobs, that's not including the electrical, the plumbing, the janitor.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this is the kind of growth, and this is just West Virginia. What if there are other natural gas plants going up around in other states?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when natural gas price, the supply of natural gas goes up, the price of natural gas goes down. Supply goes up, price goes down. It gets cheaper to heat your home.
Yep.
to fire up the gas grill. I'm excited about this. I just think that the stuff that I see coming at us is, I'll say it this way. It's 90% good, because there's going to be some downside to this. Some of the downside to this is that we're going to see a change in our healthcare sector.
Yeah.
Because what did President Trump do today? He signed an executive order allowing, I'm not sure I'm going to get this completely straight, but he signed an executive order allowing people to work directly with their healthcare providers, avoiding the entire insurance scam.
Okay.
So what's that going to do with healthcare insurers? If they've been scamming the system, which I think they have been, how many of them are going to go out of business? If you can negotiate directly with your doctor without going through insurance and providing a much lower payment rather than paying a deductible of $17,000 a year, which then makes your healthcare unaffordable, you can go directly and work with your doctor using cash payments, fee for service. Doesn't that mean that the price of healthcare is necessarily going to drop?
Yeah.
Because it's the insurance scam that has fundamentally increased the price of healthcare across all the boundaries.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think there's going to be some changes in the healthcare industry, particularly with insurance. I think the insurance companies are going to, I think they're going to have a come to Jesus moment. I think that President Trump also signed an executive order, something having to do with pharmacies have to, pharmaceutical companies have to lower pharmaceutical prices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like the death of 1,000 cuts. Every slice that President Trump takes to reduce this monster down to its bare bones is lock, stock, and barrel reducing prices for people. And yes, I know not all the prices have fallen today, but they will.
Very
across
true.
the board.
Very true.
And so somebody who's living on $40,000 a year now all of a sudden doesn't have to go into debt to afford to live.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And for the past 5 years, that's what a lot of people have been doing. And they had no choice. You know,
Right.
The cost of everything keeps going up. Wages are not increasing to match the rate of inflation. And people, I mean, we're just, and still are, but people were just absolutely stretched to the point of, I can't take it anymore. You know?
Right. Now, let me address inflation, because I know one of your questions is, is the Federal Reserve rate cut, oops, we didn't do it soon enough?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So for the last 4 or 5 years, the Federal Reserve has been increasing the federal funds rate, which is what they call quantitative tightening. What it does is it sucks money out of the economy by they raise the interest rate. So what that does is it sucks money out of the economy. It's a tightening procedure. It is meant to slow down an economy. When they started lowering rates, and they just, a quarter point here, 0.25% here, 0.25% there. I mean, I think the federal funds rate is still up over 3.5%. It's not that much, but what it does is it signals that the Federal Reserve is now not tightening. Now they're easing. It's called quantitative easing, QE for short. And we saw a lot of that back in 2009, 10, 11, 12, when they had a zero interest rate policy. And I think they kept the interest rates at zero for something like 10 years.
Yeah.
Then they started raising them. But what quantitative easing does is it lowers interest rates, which pushes money out into the banking system. Now, here's the thing. If the banks hold on to that money and they don't make more loans, that money doesn't make it into the economy. Because it's the process of loan making that pushes money out into the economy. So if the banks sit on this money and it doesn't go out into the economy, they don't increase the number of loans they're making, then that quantitative easing won't have as much pressure pushing up inflation. Right?
Right.
If the banks make more loans, then that pushes the money out into the economy, and that has an upward pressure on price levels, overall price levels. But now, in a vacuum, this overall pressure upwards on price levels would be detrimental. But we're not working in a vacuum. We're working in a swamp. We're working in an ecosystem where everything is connected. So on the one hand, you've got the quantitative easing by the Federal Reserve. Too late, Jerome Powell is probably too late. He's probably out of a job in May anyway. He's lowering the interest rates, and he's going to try and encourage those banks to make more loans and push that money out into the economy. But at the same time, on the other side of the coin, you've got President Trump lowering the number of federal regulations, encouraging businesses to either build more or start. We got gas prices coming down. We got food prices coming down. And the more that aggregate supply gets pushed out into the right, lowering the overall level of inflation, that little bitty interest rate cut, it's not going to matter.
Exactly.
Right? So, yeah. I mean, and here's another thing. President Trump signed 3 bills in July. One was the Clarity Act. One was the Genius Act. ISO 20022 went into effect. Essentially, it's Basel III, which requires all commercial banks to hold in their vaults gold and or silver as a tier 1 money asset to back all of their liabilities. This is pushing us in a direction of a gold-backed, silver-backed U.S. note. So how much longer is the Federal Reserve really going to be the lender of last resort? As far as I'm concerned, it hasn't been the lender of last resort since February 2020, when it hasn't been the lender of last resort since February of 2020, when Donald Trump put it up under the umbrella of the longer. And when the federal, and as these tariffs come rolling in, there's no reason to have an IRS. We're going to be able to fund our entire government with tariffs. So no Federal Reserve, no IRS, low inflation rates, or not at all. Once we have a gold-backed currency, there's no inflation, because inflation is only created by the number of loans that get pushed out through the banking system. We're going to have a new financial system. That's the direction that President Trump is taking us. It's not going to be going down to West Banco to borrow money or put my money in my account. My bank might be my phone.
Yeah, true.
Peer-to-peer loans, crowdsourcing loans, not going to the bank to borrow money, crowdsourcing loans. We're looking at an entirely different financial system than any of us has ever seen, period. How can you not be excited about this?
Oh, yeah, because
economics, the entire field of economics is going to change, because macroeconomics, which is entirely based on the money system, is going to flip on its head. Macroeconomists are going to be out of a job, because they won't have 400 years of this new financial system to figure out how the hell it works. all of their basic assumptions are going to change. Everything is going to change. Even microeconomics is going to change because the entire genre of microeconomics is based on scarcity. What if nothing's scarce because we got AI working for us?
True.
I'm going to be out of a job.
No, you're not. No, you're not. No, because here's what's going to happen. The folks that run the department was like, look, the only person that had the good sense to see this coming was McCutcheon, and look, we can't get rid of her. She actually knows what the hell's going on around here. So,
if I ever hear that come out of Brad Smith's mouth, I'm gonna laugh.
Well, let me get to a couple other questions.
Please.
Now, because I saw them earlier, and this one's a good one. And I can understand where she's coming from. Lana asks, how can we lobby to get rid of a regulation that sounds good on paper, but is terrible in practice? Example, serial number or tracking of drugs. Good if you deal with a few bottles, bad if you deal with thousands. So I guess the general overall question is, all right, here we are, the citizen that lives in the United States. What do we do to make our voice heard to get rid of these stupid regulations that make no sense? I'll give you a perfect example. A few years back, I saw a congressman give a speech on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives. He's from Pennsylvania. And he had worked very hard to get a Little League baseball field built in his district. Okay. Somehow got some federal money together, I guess, to make that happen. So he ran into one of his constituents later on and said, how's the baseball field? How do the kids like it? Well, we can't use it. He said, what? It's a brand new field. Said, yeah, we're not allowed to use it. Well, why not? Well, some regulators shut us down. What do you mean? How do you shut down a brand new baseball field? They said, well, they went and inspected the mirrors in the men's bathrooms, and the mirrors were about 2 inches too high from where they should have been in conjunction with the sink. And they said because of that they had to shut down. The baseball field couldn't be used until that was taken care of, and no one's been able to do anything with it since. This congressman about flipped out.
I would have,
and I understand why. It makes no sense. But I mean, to Lana's question, to the average citizen, what do we do to help, this process of getting rid of stupid regulation?
Well, from my own experience, I can say that President Trump and his administration, the people that run the various departments, are very responsive, or at least they were in the first administration. So I can't imagine anything different. I think I told you the story of Steel, West Virginia, and the steel imports from China that the Chinese were sneaking in under a certain category that was tariffed less than the actual category of steel that it was. And I wrote, Steel, West Virginia, the people there did a really nice job putting together their research and allowed me to be part of that. And I wrote a fairly detailed letter to President Trump notifying him that the Chinese were dumping their steel in a different category in order to escape the tariffs. Well, it wasn't too long after I wrote that letter that all of a sudden the Chinese dumping of steel was noticed and it was stopped. They forced the Chinese companies to recategorize the steel. Someone was watching for this. Mm-hmm. But so I think this is just my supposition. I can't imagine that the Trump administration is not wanting to hear from people when they have good ideas. So write a letter to President Trump. Forget the department heads, just write it to him. Someone's reading these letters. Someone read this letter, shuffled it on up to President Trump, and about 2 months later, I got a nice thank you letter from him, thanking me for writing the initial letter. But, I would say, I'd say write a letter. And doesn't the whitehouse.gov already have a suggestions page? They did the last time.
I think they do. I think they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. So, I mean, write a letter, go to the suggestion page. I think don't they have a Facebook page?
Probably so, if I had to guess.
I mean, I know it sounds trite to say write a letter. I guess you could call the White House switchboard if you really wanted to. I'll bet you somebody will answer the phone.
Probably so.
I mean, I think that President Trump wants our country to succeed so badly that he has a good staff of people working with him to accomplish all of this. So if you see, here's the thing. Ford and GM and Chrysler, way back in the early 1970s, instituted a plan for their UAW line workers that if they saw a problem and could figure out a way to fix it that would save the company money, the company would give them a bonus of the amount of money it would save for the year that they instituted that change. Make your voice heard. Write a letter.
Exactly.
Go to whitehouse.gov, find the suggestion page, send an email, call the White House. Someone's going to answer.
Oh, exactly. Now, let's go back to something that you've been dropping a word and we've been talking about it all evening. Tariffs. And it's not, and I understand your argument for the tariff. I don't necessarily disagree with it. But as with all things in economics, every so often a very nasty animal rears its ugly head into an otherwise beautiful system. And that animal is politics. In this case, through the judiciary. Now, what I'm getting at is this. There's a case right now up in front of the Supreme Court where the authority, maybe not the authority, let me rephrase that. The justification that the president used to impose some of these tariffs, it's being argued was not constitutionally permissible. In other words, yes, he has certain authority to enact certain tariffs, but the justification that he used to impose these tariffs was not valid. Therefore, they need to be struck down. Now, this presents an interesting problem, and I'm dying to hear what you think is going to happen on this. Because right now we are taking in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariff money. Okay. That tariff money, you could make an argument, is being used to pay for certain things already. Okay. Which if anybody listened to the president's speech last night, he's giving a let's call it a bicentennial dividend to our military of $1,776. And that's being funded in part, according to him, by tariff revenue. So we're spending it, we're spending it as fast, it's going out the door as fast as it's coming in one sense. If the Supreme Court throws the monkey wrench and says, yeah, you guys are right, he didn't have the authority to do what he did, what does that do to the economy short and long term? Like, let's say the Supreme Court says, nope, you got to stop what you're doing. You can't do it this way. I mean, are we on the hook to give this money back to these countries? I mean, what happens here?
Well, let's say SCOTUS tells the president, you don't have these Article 2 powers that Article 2 says you do. We don't have to pay the money back. We might have to pay interest on the money that we've collected. Okay. I think the primary issue is, are the tariffs or are they taxes?
Okay.
Now, I am so far from a constitutional scholar, it's just not even funny. I'm just an economist. So I think some of this is going to depend on whether the Supreme Court defines tariffs as a tax And if it's a tax, then the president can't do it because the power to tax lies with Congress, right? Am I remembering that right?
That is correct.
But here's the thing. If President Trump, in his role as commander-in-chief, with war powers, and he has declared to us that we are in a war.
An economic war.
No. He declared way back on March 30th, 2020, or maybe even it was in January 2020, we are in a war. We are in a war like none other. I'm a wartime president. Now, as commander-in-chief, something happened. Well, I can't see you, but since I can hear you, I'll keep talking.
Okay.
No, it's fine. I'm not sure what happened, but we're good.
Okay.
If as commander-in-chief, does that change how things are done? I guess is the way I want to say it. Does that make sense? Where he's
Right.
instead of being a president under peacetime, he's a commander-in-chief under wartime. And I think that's something that the Supreme Court is going to have to take a look at. But again, I mean, if you go out to Polymarket, the odds are about 76% that the court is going to rule against the administration. I'm not sure I trust that.
Yeah, because the Supreme Court's caught in a very bad situation here because in one sense, and I'm not saying that this is the actual case, it's just my perception. In one sense, the court realizes, hey, this president, right or wrong, is funding a lot of stuff off of this money. We put the kibosh on this and we are going to monkey wrench a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, that sort of begs the question, how do you finesse your way through a constitutional question and a practical reality at the same time? Because you've got to thread that needle. And I think that's the dilemma that the court is facing in this. It's not just a pure constitutional question.
Right. I think, like I said, I think part of it, when President Trump declared that we were in a war and it was like a war like no other and that he was a wartime president, that was not rescinded. He's still a wartime president. When Mike Johnson came in as Speaker of the House, he said, I'm a wartime speaker. He has not rescinded that. So somewhere in my little bird brain, I'm just wondering, do the powers of commander-in-chief allow him to, with a broad brush, declare tariffs? Will the Supreme Court declare these tariffs are taxes? They're not taxes on us. They're taxes on foreign countries, foreign companies. You know, if I think part of the delicate lace here is going to be, where do powers from Article 2 end? Because if you read Article 2, man, the founders wrote that so that if the president needed to, he could become a dictator just to keep this hand on Congress from becoming a pack of traitors.
Yep.
And if you look at some of the people who are in Congress now, I think you could say they're a pack of traitors. And if they are a pack of traitors, what if, let me just ask a hypothetical, what if President Trump can prove that the election of 2020 really was stolen by the Democrats and the rhinos? What if he could really prove that? What if he said right from the beginning, we caught them all. We got them all. We have all the information. They cheated. What if he can prove it? Then that means everybody in Congress is illegitimate, which means we don't have a Congress, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what SCOTUS thinks. President Trump, as commander-in-chief, can take over the entire nation as a dictator to run the country as he sees fit until those elections can be held properly and appropriately. And who's going to run the elections if nobody trusts the Dominions and Smartmatic machines? It's got to be the military, because the military is our backstop. When everything goes to hell in a handbasket, the entire Constitution is thrown away. Congress is illegitimate. We've got a couple judges on SCOTUS that aren't legitimate. If the 2020 election was stolen, that means Biden wasn't legitimate. The auto pen ran everything. That means the only one in control is President Trump. And if he wasn't legitimately elected, what the fuck do we do?
Yeah.
We fall back to the military. The military is the backstop to everything. The military would be the only way to run an entire election system, to re-elect everyone in Congress, to re-elect properly and appropriately the president. So I'm not sure if SCOTUS has got a leg to stand on at this point if President Trump rolls out truckloads and truckloads of evidence that the 2020 election was stolen.
Yeah, that's going to be an even thornier question than what to do about tariffs, because it's going to be like, oops.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely,
so, I mean, I don't know. The whole idea of can President Trump implement tariffs on countries because he feels like it or because it's going to help the country? Maybe that's not even the question we should be asking. Maybe the question we should be asking is, does he really have the evidence? And I bet he does, because he's never told us anything that didn't turn out to be true. He's never told us anything that didn't turn out to be true. So if he says, I've got truckloads of evidence that they stole the 2020 election, I'm going to believe him. I'm gonna call his bluff and say, okay, big boy, roll it out. Let's see your evidence.
Yeah, let's see what you got. Exactly.
Let's see what you got. Exactly. Ante up or call. So I don't know. Maybe the tariff issue isn't really an issue. Maybe the issue is Congress isn't legitimate and hasn't been since 2020. And if you remember that 2004 election, where the hanging chads, Dominion and Smartmatic machines were brought in, and they were designed to be they were designed to be hacked. What if our elections haven't been legitimate since 2006? 20 years worth of illegitimate elections. You think tariffs are going to be a big deal when we haven't had a legitimate Congress for 20 years? No legitimate Congress, no legitimate president, and every SCOTUS nominee that was confirmed since 2006. No legitimate SCOTUS. Oh my God, that's all three branches of government. No SCOTUS, no Congress, no president. What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, military is going to step in and make sure it's all run properly and appropriately, according to their law of war manual. That's exactly what's going to happen. Tariffs be damned. It doesn't matter at that point.
True.
That's not a constitutional crisis, Brian. That's holy fuck, what the shit do we do crisis.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, normally we would turn to the Constitution. Well, I don't think the Constitution saw this one coming.
Oh, I disagree. That's exactly what Article 2 was written for. Article 2 embodies all the powers of the president. You go back and read that. That article tells the president he can take over if Congress is illegitimate. He can take over if SCOTUS is illegitimate. That Article 2 gives him dictatorial powers if it is necessary. And see, that's the light little delicate dance that SCOTUS is doing right now. Okay. Was 2020 legit? If it wasn't legit, then we don't really have a Congress. Haven't had one. Didn't have one. Don't have one now. President's got to take over. He's commander in chief. Yeah, I guess he can set the tariffs wherever he wants. Because we don't have a Congress.
Yeah, I'll be very interested to see how the court hands down this decision, because there are a lot of thorny issues that they are going to have to work their way through on this. But in the vein of another branch of government, we had another question from the audience, and it's a legitimate question because it does relate to the question of economics, and it's this. What does she think about the media and MAGA reporting MAGA is waning, dying? And here's the other half that I want to focus on. Dems sweep the election of the next 2 years. Let me frame that up a little bit.
Media MAGA report. Wait, put that question back up, please.
Okay.
I think, what do I think about the media and MAGA reporting that MAGA is waning? I didn't know MAGA was reporting that they're dying. Well, but the media likes to report that MAGA is dying.
True.
And who trusts the media anymore? Is anybody still listening to them? I don't. I haven't listened to Fox News since March of 2022. I turned those bastards off as soon as they called Arizona 2 minutes after the Arizona polls closed in 2020. I was like, all right, that's it. They're done. Well, I don't listen to them.
Oh, I don't blame
because the media, the mainstream media, is the propaganda arm of the Democrat Party. Why on God's green earth would I listen to the Democrats? True. They're just the flip side of the rhinos. It's the uniparty, neither of which I want to listen to, because they have a story that they're always pushing. They have a narrative that they want me to listen to. I'm sorry, I'm done listening to bullshit. I've had it up to my eyeballs with all of you fuckers. I'm done. I don't listen to them. I go listen to podcasts like yours. I don't even listen to the radio anymore. Once in a while I watch local news, and that's just to catch the weather.
Yeah.
So who cares what the media says about MAGA?
True.
Now, what was the second part of that one?
Well, let me frame that up.
Okay.
Let's assume for a second that the Democrats retake control of the House at a minimum. Okay.
Okay.
And this relates to me on the question of economics. Trump is doing a lot of things that are going to inevitably feed into the economy to make the life of the average American better. Okay. However, you're going to have a countervailing measure in our government by way of the Democrats controlling the House. How much could they derail what Trump is trying to do? Not necessarily from a political standpoint. They're going to try and do that. That's a given. But I'm talking about the economics. How much could the Democrats controlling the House really undo Trump's economic agenda?
Okay. First, you have an underlying assumption that we're actually going to have midterms in 2026.
Okay. All right. I'll grant you that.
Let me go back to my previous statement about President Trump saying, I've got truckloads of evidence that the 2020 election was stolen. How do you think that's going to impact 2026? Because what President Trump has also said is get rid of the machines, paper ballots, one-day voting, no mail-in ballots. And what is he doing? He's state by state, by precinct, the voter rolls are getting cleared out of illegal aliens. Right? Democrats cannot win an election without cheating. The only way, let me rephrase that. The only way Democrats can win an election is to cheat. What if every avenue for cheating is cut off? No machines, one-day voting, paper ballots, voter ID. What if that's what is coming down the pike at us? Because President Trump can say, I can prove the 2020 election was stolen because you had mail-in ballots, you had machines, you had illegal aliens voting, you had no voter ID. Is there going to be a 2026 election? I don't know. But if President Trump can prove that the 2020 election was stolen, seems to me that that just puts a block right in the road from whatever the Democrats think that they can do to steal an election. Because I think President Trump is right. I think the only way the Democrats are going to be able to win any election, let alone the midterms, is to steal it. And the only way they can steal it is if they use machines, they have mail-in ballots, they have millions of illegal aliens voting, and they refuse to have voter ID.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the only way the Democrats can win is by cheating. But if you don't allow them all of the avenues for cheating that they've been using for the last 20, 30, 40 years, they can't win shit.
Okay.
Does that make any sense? I mean, that's just from my point of view. Now, let's say President Trump doesn't have the evidence. He doesn't have the receipts. He's got no sauce. Well, then we're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
And I don't have any place to run to.
The last best hope of man on earth, I believe. That's is what it was described as.
So somewhere in the back of my prayers, my prayer list, I've got a huge section for the Trump administration. I really do. I keep him in my prayers all the time. I really hope he's got the evidence for the 2020 election steal, because I know in my heart those bastards stole it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's why we had COVID. COVID was meant to lock us down, increase mail-in ballots. President Trump told us right from the beginning, like starting in April or May, they're going to steal the election. They're going to use mail-in ballots. We don't have voter ID. We're using all these machines. He told us for months. And what'd they do? Mail-in ballots, machines, no voter ID, millions of illegal aliens voting.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like an election steal to me.
True.
Very true. I mean, people are going to have, different points of view, but I think a lot of this depends on the truckloads of evidence that President Trump will roll out.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what we'll start bringing the train into the station with a question that I think is on the minds of a lot of people. And that is, we started the live stream with a discussion of looking ahead to 2026. From an economist's standpoint, if you were advising individuals or even friends of yours or whoever, if they say, hey, what should I do to prepare myself economically for 2026? Given all the economic things that are swirling around right now, I mean, when I say prepare, I mean, maybe they're looking for a new job, or maybe, they're looking ahead and saying, yeah, the economy, I don't know. Trump says he's going to do all this stuff, but, in where I live, maybe it's not so good. What would you tell people to do to prepare for the coming year economically?
My go-to advice has always been, first, get out of debt as much as you can. Pay off your debts. Pay off your credit cards. Pay off your car. The only debt that you should be carrying for any length of time is probably your mortgage.
Okay.
Get out of debt. that will go a long way towards easing a lot of money worries. The second thing is that you might want to check, if your current occupation isn't really doing it for you, start looking around to see what options are being made available by state agencies offering certification programs in HVAC or plumbing or electric, or because a lot of states are now offering trade skills programs. In fact, I think I read a month or two ago that Home Depot was offering trade skill programs. Home Depot.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So, if working with your hands is something that you can do that, takes brains and skill, go check out some of that stuff. Something else to consider, if you have a little bit of spare money laying around, you might want to buy some silver. Not financial advice, totally
Understood.
educational. But when we talked back on October 22nd, the price of silver was just under $49. It's over $65 now. That's a 30% increase in the price of silver in 2 months.
Oh, wow.
The really cool thing about silver is there's such a high demand for it because it is used up in manufacturing and industry. Silver, I think, could become more valuable than gold because gold is not used in industry as much as silver is.
Yeah, let me pop this up here real quick.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's today. Go out, do year to date.
Okay.
YTD. There you go.
Look at that.
Look at that. Now, in order for silver to reach the inflation adjusted 50-year, what is it, 40-year, 45-year high from when the Hunt brothers ran it up in, what was that, 1980, 81? The price of silver the price of silver in today's dollars has to go to something like 250, but we're headed there really fast.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you look at the futures contracts on the COMEX, the futures contracts out 3 or 4 years are already beyond $75.
Ooh.
Right. Ooh. Now here's the thing. We in the whole world, about 800 million ounces of silver is produced every single year, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that the demand for silver exceeds that and has been exceeding that for years.
Mm-hmm.
4 years. Not 4 years. FORYEARS. If you have a certain supply of silver that's like a perpendicular supply curve, every time demand goes up, that pushes the price up. So I've been listening to people like Andy Schenkman and Bill Holter and Bixweir and a slew of other experts. I'm not an expert. I've been listening to them, and they're telling me that silver could go up as high as $1,200 an ounce. Now that protects your fiat currency, but really what this means, the price of silver going up doesn't necessarily mean it's more valuable. It means that our fiat dollar is losing its value by the minute.
Yep.
I'm not saying it's worthless yet, but we're getting damn close to worthless.
Yep.
Damn close. And so, you go off and you buy, a couple ounces of silver. Maybe it costs you $60 or $70, but you've protected that money because as our dollar becomes more worthless, that silver and gold is going to go up in price. And it also means that at some point we're going to come to a revaluation of our entire currency system. Because you cannot have a worthless dollar that nobody's going to use. I mean, China and Japan are already threatening about rolling out all the bonds, all of the U.S. bonds onto the market and just dumping it.
Yeah. And if that happens, it's a catastrophe.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. It
Could
could
be.
be. So, I mean, or, the moment they roll it out and dump it, President Trump goes off with the Federal Reserve head, cancel the IRS. We're backing a new U.S. note with gold and silver. Boom. Just like that.
And away we go.
And away we go.
Yep.
So, it's a little bit like watching one of those adventure movies where everything comes down to the very last scene.
Yep.
Right? Everything comes together and it's poof. It works.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, get out of debt, get your finances in order. If you have a little spare money, buy some silver, buy some gold. Hell, you can find it at pawn shops, maybe.
Oh, exactly. So yeah, there's a lot of things to do to position oneself for a good year in 2026. And, the advice you're giving is sound as always. So, well, Dr. McCutcheon, I want to thank you for being here tonight. Again, it's always a pleasure to have you here. I see that WWG1 is posting the link to the website where your lectures, your articles, everything can be found. But if just for your own purposes, if you would like to share with people, where can they find more material that you've written, spoken about, interviews given? Where can they go to find what you've got?
Well, everything that I do in the interwebs world is on my website. Robin's Radio Interviews has it's the entire list of everything that I've done since 2018. I've got radio interviews, podcasts from you, Dangerous Info, Sean Brooks's American Education FM, Dr. Dave Janda's Operation Freedom radio show. So they can find that there. I've also got my In the Classroom, and those are my economics lectures from microeconomics and macroeconomics. Not sure, but I think I might have money and banking in there too. I don't really remember. It's been a while since I've been there. My freedom lectures are the lectures from my Atlas Shrugged class. And those are the 8 or 9 main lectures that I do during the semester with my students that at the, I guess it's at the class is really called Comparative Economic Systems, but we use the book Atlas Shrugged, so it's got a nickname. So, but that's really where I'm at. I'm sure if they search on my name, they can find articles that I've written. I don't, all of my published articles stay with the journals that they're at. It'd be a violation of copyright, I think, for me to put them on my own website. So I'm sure people can find what I've written somewhere out there on the interwebs.
Well, there you go. Well, folks, thank you for being here tonight for another session of Chatting on the Porch. And we will be back this Saturday morning, 10:30 a.m. for Front Porch Brunch, our last live stream of the year. So in the meanwhile, you guys have a great rest of your Thursday evening. And Dr. McCutcheon, hang on. We'll say some proper goodbyes backstage. Thank you guys so much for being here. We love you very much. And have a safe rest of the evening and a great Friday. We'll see you Saturday morning. Bye-bye.